Go ahead and call this working session to order. Roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Here.
Hill?
Here.
Mingus?
Here.
Sutherland?
Here.
Mayor Call?
Here.
All present, Your Honor.
Thank you. Tonight's working session is on the complete utility and road reconstruction process. Of course, no formal action will be taken during the course of this working session. And without further ado, Mr. Barron, I will turn it over to you, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to present this working session. I know this is a little different idea than what we've heard in the past. It's following a process that a neighboring community has done to help proliferate not just rebuilding a street, but rebuilding the utilities contained within that street as part of an entire encompassing process. So I want to kind of go through a few things to kind of let you know how we got to where we're at. What we looked at when we considered what streets would be good choices for this, how we arrived at those conclusions, and then kind of where we're at financially, asking for ultimately an approval of an engineering agreement to be able to move forward. So as we began this process, I met with the three departments, that would be the water department, the sewer department, and the street department individually, and asked them to put together a list of streets as to say, for the water department, which is where it kind of began, show me streets that we know where we have small water mains, 4-inch or 6-inch water mains, where the current requirement is now 8-inch requirement. So these are opportunities to create better fire flows in the event of an emergency, as well as just better service to the actual citizens of that area. If we were building it today, it would need to be 8-inch. So we started with that list to begin with. Of course, the sewer list was a little easier to deal with because it dealt with where do we have clay pipe, which is almost everywhere other than where we have already slip lined or where we might have done some replacements. And then I took those two lists and kind of combined them up with the street department list to say, okay, looking at the street department list of where our current streets are that we're going to be working on over the next couple of years, what street could we help identify on this list to be an option to be able to be considered for part of this project. So we came up with 3 streets. Well, we came up with about 5 or 6 streets, but we ultimately decided on 3 streets in no particular order of Vanaken Court, Baker Street, and part of Oakwood that goes right there next to Baker, as well as Marion Street or Marion Avenue. That's the 3 streets we ultimately moved to the top of the list. And how we kind of got into that was we were trying to look for a street that had a curb and gutter section. We were also looking for a street that had a rural section, which is ditches and culverts. The reasoning is since this is our first time doing this process, we kind of wanted to get our feet wet to try to put together some numbers so that we know for as we move through the future what kind of costs we can expect to incur as we begin to see a street that is a particular footage. We can use either one of these, whether it's a curb section or whether it's a ditch section, to be able to come up with an approximate price of where we were going to end up with for budgeting purposes to move forward. With that, we received word that Vanaken Court was going to be on the list for Ameren to replace all of the gas main and services in the area in next spring. So that kind of helped us narrow the field down again, knowing that they are only on a 4-inch main. They do have clay sewer out in the street. And then to turn around and know that the gas department, SoCo Gas, is going to go through there and replace all the mains and services next spring as part of this process. It seemed like an opportune time to consider Vanaken Court as our primary focus to be able to get to a potential street with curb and gutter to be able to redo the sewer, the water, the curb, the gutter, and all of the entire street. So that's kind of how we got to where we are as far as the streets that we have worked on from there. We made several assumptions based on this. Part of the assumptions were if we were replacing a sewer line or a water line and we were not going to replace the street as part of this process, how much would we be required to repair? Obviously, if I'm going to trench down the middle of a street, tear out all the sewer, put all new sewer in, I'm going to have at least 6 foot of pavement that I'm going to tear up in that process. Something similar along the same lines in the water department. When we go through and we put in replace a water main, you're liable to have 3 to 4 feet of water main trench path if you keep it in the street to be able to replace. So that helped us offset some of the costs that would be normally associated with the street department replacement to be able to use the sewer water funding to be able to help replace that pavement upon completion of the project. So those couple of things kind of all played together in determining where we were at and how we got there. The sheets you have in front of you have several different things. It's kind of got an overview of what was requested from each one of the water, sewer, curb, gutter, street department. It's got a map that's included, kind of showing you the area in case you're not familiar with it. Our utilities are on those maps. Of course, green is sewer, blue is water, and if there's any gray color in there, then it's also storm sewer that's related to that process too. So, we were able to identify the parameters to say, hey, we were going to go from this manhole that happens to be behind number 144 Vanaken Court, and to go the whole length of Vanaken Court, and then also to go behind 115 Vanaken Court and be able to go to that manhole. So we were able to identify exactly the parameters of what we were talking about replacing all the manholes, replacing all of the sewer lines, all of the sewer laterals to the property lines, redoing all the water lines, redoing all the water services throughout that process. Of course, then replacing storm sewer, curb, gutter, and ultimately pavement when we're completed. So that gets us to where we are today. Today we are sitting here with these considerations. We considered other options. Me and Rick met with both commissioners, and we discussed, well, do we include sidewalks as part of this project to help improve the neighborhood? Do we consider a curb and gutter in a neighborhood where it does not have a curb and gutter, where it's currently a ditch section? And we kind of discussed some of those as well as the costs that go with them. And the concern we had as a group and the consensus we had was it may not be the best timing right now to consider adding on these additional improvements because of cost, to help try to keep the cost down, to be able to drive this program forward, to be able to, if we're replacing exactly what's there with new curb, new gutter, new street, and as well as the new utilities that the city is in control of, then that would be the best bang for our buck at this time, rather than looking at spending extra dollars on sidewalks that have never, in places where they've never had sidewalks. These prices that you have on one of your attachments is an opinion of probable cost. This came from the engineer. This came from Midwest. Kind of shows some ideas. I will tell you and caveat this, the water cost that's included in the spreadsheet is the entire water cost, as if we subbed that out to contractors. So that cost can be reduced significantly if we have the bandwidth to be able to do that in-house. And I believe we do have the bandwidth to do the water and the water services in-house. So that cost would go down significantly. But the numbers I did utilize were the ones that I received back from the engineer as their probable construction costs. And so that gives you the idea, is if we just said, hey, we're going to hire somebody else to come through here and do all of this work, that's all kind of the numbers you're looking at there. So the water numbers are inflated. The problem would be is the amount of time I had to try to sit and figure out how much we could do each individual item for, and what's our man-hour cost, and then what happens when we get pulled off to a water main break or other type of work. It seemed to be pretty questionable as to whether we wanted to try to do this in-house or whether we wanted to do it out. So I left the numbers to be reflective of what the cost, the expected cost would be if we completely contracted that out. The engineering, of course, now needs to be completed this year in the 2019-2020 budget year to be able to be constructed in the 2020-2021 year. So what you have before you is or what you will have before you later is going to be the resolutions to approve the engineering costs to be able to get this paper ready, drawn up, some more dialing in on these figures to assure that when I request a budget request come December-ish, that I'm making a request for what the dollars actually need to be in that budget to be able to complete this project. So this is just the first piece of it to be able to move ahead, hone down these numbers, get everything designed, get everything ready to actually be shovel ready. The reason you have two projects in front of you is, we discussed this long and hard as the group before of us to try to discuss whether or not we wanted to bring forward two projects or one project. The idea was, if we have two projects shovel ready, if we have funds that are become available somehow, some other way throughout any processes that we have a project that we can actually pull the trigger on and move forward to actually get to maybe having two projects. So the idea we would have would be, we'll have two projects engineered this year, one project being completed next year. Next year I would also be engineering a third project, which would ultimately keep us with 2 projects on the shelf to be ready, shovel-ready, and 1 project in motion in each year. So with that, the costs break down themselves as far as the engineering costs. For Vanaken Court, the engineering cost for the Phase 2 engineering was $63,500 total. Of that, I've got it broken down into $16,500 coming out of the Water Department budget, engineering budget, $21,500 coming out of the sewer engineering budget, and $23,750 out of the street budget for that project. And then Marion Street, which came in at $71,000, had a similar breakdown: $18,000 for water, $25,500 for sewer, and $27,500 for streets. This would be only for the engineering costs to be able to get all of our plans, to get everything submitted to the IEPA for water and sewer replacements, to be able to get all of our bidding done for the sewer and the street department work ultimately at the end. So the only part that is not included in this would be the water work. If we decided to bid that out, there would be some additional cost to bid that out. As it was, I asked them to bid that assuming that we were going to be the ones to do that work in-house. So it's one thing to do the engineering part, but the true dollars and cents come in the next piece of it, which I know is not part of what you're being asked to consider tonight, but what does fall is what's going to be the requirement if we do push this forward and we have the engineering on the shelf. What am I going to need next? That falls with me asking for the 2020 to 2021 budget year, $315,057 for water department. That would be assuming that we are farming all that work out. So there'd be some extra dollars that would come back out of that if we were doing that in-house. The sewer cost would be $428,170.50, and the street department would be $351,312.50. So ultimately, all that rolls up to the master cost of $1,368,175, with the engineer having what they call a 25% contingency. I think that's a high contingency number, but that's basically trying to deal with and plan for round budget numbers of what the maximums could come in when you have things that you find that you weren't aware of as you begin through this project. So the real cost is $1,094,540. That was with the water being subbed out, with a $273,635 contingency included to be the $1.368 million for completion of that project. Vanaken is, hold on one second, let me shuffle to the right paper here. The Vanaken itself is 1,184 feet long. There's approximately 20 services on there. I say approximately because you never know 100% sure where a house may ran back in the days when they did it before other subdivisions have branched off. You've got Star Rim that comes off of Vanaken and goes back. I believe I accounted for most of the services, but you could have had one house that was built before water got built back along Vanaken or along Star Rim, so you might have a rogue service that comes out that would have to be included and replaced as part of this project. So ultimately, that breaks down to the entire piece for Vanaken, and then the Marion Court process was just for the engineering piece of it. I've got the numbers of what the expectations are for costs included in your packet, as well as a package for the audience. And those would be basically, at this time, would be asking for the 2021 to 2022 budget year, which would be the following year. So it's the second year out program. That way, if something does happen and we have funding become available, we've already got a project that's shovel ready to be able to begin and move through. I know in talking with Commissioner Decker, I know the biggest piece of this puzzle is we understand that the sewer water is an enterprise fund and they have their own funds that are sitting there. The sewer and water department has the funds to be able to do this project as part of their not just engineering process, but they will have the funding available next year to be able to move ahead with this piece. The piece that always runs into the hurdle is the general fund dollars, which is the street department dollars. With the MFT increase that went into effect this year, I'm not for sure exactly where. Jeff can maybe speak to where he thinks that's going to settle out, but the $351,000 that's going to be required for street department for doing this work should be covered as part of that MFT increase. Now, what does that mean in dollars and cents? Means we're not going to spend any more money on our normal street maintenance program. We won't have to take anything away from our normal street maintenance program, but the additional dollars that would be flowing into that would ultimately be diverted into this project to replace a street.
So Dennis, just to clarify, for example, this year, we allocated $1.2 million for street maintenance.
Right.
So is what I hear you saying, the additional motor fuel tax funds that we're to receive would be shuffled off to this project, so basically you look at another $1.2 million going to street maintenance next year if we go this route.
Correct. As opposed to 1.5 or 1.6, and correct me, Jeff, if I'm wrong on my predictions as to how much money we could actually be putting into street maintenance.
I think the variable here is whether or not council puts as much money into streets that they did this year and don't do anything different for fire, police cars, or anything else. And so if they put the same amount in, then yeah, you're correct.
That's all I have for a presentation. I figured there was going to be a lot of questions, which is kind of why I'm covered everything as in a nutshell, but if, by all means, if you have any questions.
I'd like to open it up to Commissioners Decker and Sutherland first, so you can give your comments, and then we'll open it up for discussion.
Appreciate that, Mayor. For me, this has been, as you know, we've always done street maintenance the way we have, and I'm probably the most critical person of our streets in town. And I say that because I'm always bringing up our streets, trying to spend more money on our streets. I've been consistent with that. And I've actually been, I was talking with the mayor earlier today, at times people from different places or even around town look at me and say, you know, our streets aren't that bad. And I think it's just constantly thinking about it. Whenever I drive on a street, I look at the condition, and I have hopes of trying to make as big of an impact as we can. There are some streets that are that bad, obviously. But in general, as a whole, especially with the topography that East Peoria has, I can't say how we compare to others. But we've tried to, since I've been in office, we've tried to stretch the dollars that we have as far as possible. We've incorporated some things like spray patching, heat scarification over the past 10, 12 years that I think has made a difference. Not always very well accepted, especially heat scarification, because that's a process that after you're done, you put the rocks on top of the road, leave it there for a couple weeks, then take the rocks off. The finished product is a very good product with the rocks ground into the surface, and it being a very hard surface that lasts for many years is comparable to the actual cost of the repair. But it's messy. It's not what we want. We all would like to drive on perfectly brand new streets. We've had to work to figure out how we can spend our money the most effectively. Since there have been many times where we've started talking about street maintenance as a council quite a bit, and one was during the last election, and then since the election we've continued to speak about it, and I am happy about that, because trying to put as much money into our roads as possible is, I think, what we would all like to do. To be fair, when this idea was brought forward, I love the concept of making, you take roads that we're not just going to do maintenance on, but instead, pick up, you fix all the water lines, sewer lines underneath the road. You have Ameren come out and you replace all the gas lines, all the electrical lines, everything that we can, that we need to replace, we do that. I love that concept. My only problem through this has been the cost. Knowing that we have limited budgets every year, and a concern that we're not going to get to all the needs of the street department, I've been skeptical. I've argued with people, I've debated, and I've been at times probably difficult to deal with, to give into this. And I can't say I'm totally there, but one part about this is when it was brought forward to me, as I said a minute ago, I do like the concept. I don't want to waste money. I don't want to do some street repairs where we're basically paying for a bunch of Band-Aids, and then a few years later we have to pay for more Band-Aids. So my mind struggles with that of getting rid of the Band-Aid repairs and doing as much as we can to make the streets last as long as we can. My only roadblock in my mind has been how much money are we going to spend on this, and how far would that money go with traditional maintenance? So, speaking a lot with Commissioner Sutherland, he asked if we give this a look to see if it's something that would be a good process for the city. And I think we all would like to do it. That's been my concern. As difficult as I have been, maybe for him and maybe for Rick and Dennis and anybody about it, I thought probably the best thing to do is come to the council and put it in front of everybody to just give the community an opportunity to weigh in. And quick question, I was trying to do my notes, Dennis, as you were talking. If I get you correctly, and I have these notes as well, but $351,000, it would be the street fund obligation strictly for Vanaken, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and that and Marion, as we're proposing, is simply the engineering costs. I would like to go back to the streets that were chosen. I will not stand here and say these are the worst streets in town. I can take you to a whole bunch more streets that are in worse shape than this. But as Dennis pointed out, if we take the first of all, you look at the streets in town that need new water lines, and we have that group of streets. And then we cross-check that with the streets that we need to do something different with the sewer lines, and you use those group of streets. And then look at the rating system for our streets in general. And basically, these streets that are in front of you scored high or low, or whatever you want to say, in each of those categories. They in each of those categories are in need of repair. That's why these were chosen. And I don't want anybody in the public to look at this and say, well, my street was worse. I'm sure you're probably correct. But we're just trying to figure out overall the entire street structure, including the lines underneath and everything else, what is in need of the biggest repair. So I guess that's what I want to say tonight. I wanted to bring it here. One suggestion was, well, why don't you try this and see how well it works. When you pick the road up and fix everything underneath it, so we don't have to worry about those lines anymore, and then we don't have to worry about the street surface itself for many years to come, and start making some really good improvements throughout our town that is appealing. And for me, I want to make sure that I'm not missing something. I want to see what everybody else's opinion is, and if it is the will of the council, then I would go forward with this. I still have my skepticism, but my charge is to do what's best for the city, and I'll do that. So I think that I am looking forward to tonight's conversation. If I would invite everybody to even look into this further as well, but I think for right now, Mayor, that's kind of. Well, I do have one more question, Dennis. I think I asked this because everybody will want to know this. $351,000 is what we will be spending on Vanaken if we do this. And if we would go with traditional street maintenance, whether it be scarification, spray patching, so on, recognizing that it wouldn't take care of the water lines and everything else, I guess, how far would 351,000 go? Is there a way for you to just kind of quickly put that into words?
Of course, all those are bid as part of the package process with our road maintenance dollars. So all I can do is kind of go back to what we had the last bid for. The last bid we had for street maintenance, which included the heat scarification, included seal coating, including the GSB 88 application, ended up being approximately $12 a square yard. So you've got to do your math to figure out how wide is a street, how far can you go. I did all that, and what it turns into doing is on figuring a 24-foot wide street, it's $32 a foot. So if we took this entire $351,000 and I threw it at, we're going to seal coat and heat scarify and GSB, how far can we go? And that number is almost 11,000 linear feet of street, assuming 24-foot wide. If it's 33-foot wide, you don't get to quite go as far. If it's only 20, you get to go farther significantly. So that's based off of, I think the actual math come in at $11.55 a square yard. I rounded it to 12. It's not going to, rather be conservative in the numbers as to what that explanation would be.
All right. So you said 11,000 linear feet?
Yes.
It's been a while since I've dealt with linear feet. So
That would be assuming curb to curb,
I getcha.
going down the
Okay.
street, 11,000 feet,
24-foot wide, okay,
24-foot wide.
all right. It'd take me a minute to figure out how long of a stretch that would cover.
Yeah, to give you an idea, Vanaken is 1,184 feet long, and Marion is 1,560 feet long. So it's about 9 times what Vanaken would be, the length of it would be, and probably somewhere around 7.5 or so, 8 times what the length of Marion Street would be.
Oh, so 11,000 feet.
Yes.
Oh, okay, so we don't have to take into account the width, I gotcha.
Yeah, I took an
Okay.
average mean width of looking at last year's road maintenance. Some of our streets were 18, 19, 20. Then we had several streets that were 33. So, we kind of looked at that entire list and said, 24 would be a good average number to try to get a footage measurement to be able to do that comparison.
So essentially, if we took Vanaken itself, we would be able to do about 9 more of those with that much money. I gotcha. Okay. That's all for now, Mayor.
All right, Commissioner Sutherland.
Okay, I'm going to start out with a question. I don't remember us discussing that when we were going to approach an engineer that we left the water out. I don't remember reading that or hearing that. Is that what we did?
What do you mean?
Left the
water out?
water engineering out of the bid?
No, the water engineering was included.
Is
The
in
water
the-
construction.
Is in the engineering bid, though?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Because I thought you said earlier that it was held out of the engineering, so I
No,
apologize.
just the bidding documents that they would be producing. So if you were going to have, if we decided we were going to put that out for bid, the engineer would have an additional cost for preparing all the bid documentation and being able to get that out to any contractors that we wanted to bid that, as opposed to doing it in-house. Per our conversations beforehand, the idea was that our water group normally does install water main and can do the water services part of it. Can we do it as efficiently as a contractor? Maybe, maybe not, but it's an idea that it kind of gives the two different options, is we have the option of being able to contracting out the whole allotment for water at this cost, or we can begin to say, okay, we've already got salaries, here, we've already got parts here, so then therefore, instead of needing 174,000 for water, I need 60,000 because I'm going to use all the rest of the normal budgeted funds to be able to do it.
And then my next question to you, which is going to lead into this, I hope, is when we had problems on Arnold Road this past week, when the manhole covers came off, that was storm or that was sanitary?
In that particular area, it is sanitary sewer, but there is infiltration that goes on in that particular area. We know we have a problem throughout the city.
Has that been lined yet?
I don't know that answer offhand.
You don't think so?
You don't think so, Rick?
I don't believe it has.
Yeah, I know that was one of the things we were working on this week, was trying to figure out lining
Th-
that.
This is, for me, from where I come from in my world, Arnold Road is a perfect example of what's going on underneath of our roads. And it was because it was going downhill at such a rate, and people are pumping their sump pumps into the sanitary sewer, such a high amount that gravity lines can't keep up with it. So what happens is when it gets clogged up anywhere along the line for any reason, roots, collapsing old tile like we have, then it starts backing up. And then when you take a 300-pound manhole cover and it lifts it up and throws it off to the side, and the water gushes up, 2 foot out, 2 foot in diameter for hour after hour, that tells me that no matter how we want to look at this, we're to the point now to where we're wasting our money fixing streets without doing the infrastructure. And since that's the world I come from, and I know what's going on under there, I can tell you this: we can kick this can down the road, but we're at the end of this road. I mean, we're lining, trying to save, get extra length. And what scares me is this, and I don't know if the general population understands, the sewer coming from their house to the main is called a lateral. Right now, under the way our city is ran, the homeowner owns that lateral all the way to the main, including the T. As long as there's flow through the main, the city is not responsible for anything. So if a homeowner's lateral breaks underneath of the road, it's not a $50 fix. It's not a $5,000 fix. It's $15,000, $20,000 to break into a road and do a semi-minor replacement and not go all the way across the road. In some neighborhoods, you'd have to go all the way across the road. So what we've been doing is we've been lining these mains, saving our own butts from repairs, and leaving the homeowners out to dry. Because if our main is deteriorating with its age, so is theirs. It was all put in at the same time, just different size. Same contractors, same developers, just different size. So if we're lining our own sewers, then the can's to the point to where we have to do this. And I haven't talked to the city council as a whole about this at all, but I think that in the future, whatever street that we fix totally and completely, when we run the laterals from the main, wherever the main's head in the street, to your property line, we own the laterals in. I think that should be taken off the citizens' back and put onto our back where it belongs, as long as it's brought up to today's standard with plastics and stuff like that. I think that's it's a brain-dead situation. And there's other changes that I was wanting to put before this board that has to do with what we're talking about here, and that is there's areas up in the Sunnyland area which we don't do all the water up there, and we don't do all the sewer up there, and we need to give a notice to the people up there, or to the companies up there, that's saying, hey, listen, in 5 years we could be picking out a street up here. And when we do pick out a street up here, we're giving you 5 years to fix your water or to fix your sewer. And if you don't fix it and you have to dig up the street, we're going to go curb to curb, side to side for 100, 150 feet and make them patch a big section of the road, which a lot of communities do this, and I think that that's smart for us to take a look at. This is our first time that I've known about that this community is taking a look at doing the whole thing with water, with sewer. And I think that when I talked to Craig Loudermilk from Morton, and he runs their department that oversees the streets and their rebuilding, they put a 6-inch pipe next to the road for everybody's sump pump and footing tiles that get pumped up and out to go into, which eliminates this problem. And I've said this before in other meetings, that when we do start doing this, there will be house inspections, and there will be nobody's house tied to the sanitary sewer through sump pumps. If we have to do a dye test, if we have to do a smoke test, whatever it takes, we want it to be clean. So when somebody's redoing their basement or fixing their sump pumps or something, just start thinking that when we come through, you got to disconnect from it. I think that these bids here that are proposed, and this is one time, again, this just me, if you take a look at the numbers that other communities have had, their top number per foot of a street is not even $1,000 a foot. And if we're looking at 1,084 lineal feet, and we're coming up with $1,094,000, we're at the top of that list. And this street that I'm looking at here, I mean, and the other one on Marion, there is no sidewalks and there is no curbs. There's a lot of things that we're not paying for that this $1,000 from the other community did. So I'm going to politely, with a smile on my face, saying that $1,368,000 is way closer to probably, I would guess, probably $700,000 to $750,000. And that's why I would like to have more than one engineering thing done at a time. I'd like to have a shovel-ready job to go, whether it's our own funds that are available, or there's maybe the state has something out there that we can grab a hold of and use for water and sewer and stuff, and it's out there from time to time, and we just got to grab it. I would have to say that there's no doubt in my mind that the City of East Peoria's water guys are some of the top-notch guys around here. I've worked with a lot of communities. I've worked with a lot of water departments, and there isn't anybody better than ours, hands down, bar none. And I think they're more than capable of doing a job like this. And I would think that it would be a slap in their face if we went around them and they had the time and because they're very capable of doing this. So they've got the equipment to do it, and I think we should use our resources the best that we can wisely. And Silco I've talked to them, they will follow us around, and they just want a notice. What streets are you going to look at next year? And they'll make sure that if there's anything that they need to have done, they'll do. One of the suggestions that we've heard, and that is taking telephone poles down in some neighborhoods. If the lines are old enough, and there's so many people that pay rent for those telephone poles back and forth to each other, it's sometimes impossible to take them down. But there are areas that if we ask Sokol to take a look at that, because it's on a rotation as they replace these things. So maybe we'll get lucky, and every once in a while we'll get a neighborhood that has telephone poles and wires up in the sky that we can have them taken down and buried, and that way there's less power outages, there's less trees falling on them, there's less tree trimmings, less accidents, etc. So as you guys probably have always known since we've talked, and we have talked, a team of wild horses isn't going to keep me from getting this done somehow. That's it.
All right, commissioners, any comments, discussion?
Yeah, I've got a couple. To me, I think Commissioner Sutherland has convinced me that I'm open to this approach, because it makes sense. But now Commissioner Decker has also hit on some concerns I have as well. And that's when we look at the 351K, what can we do with that versus, making that a budgetary line item? I'm all for increasing our amounts for our streets. So, to me, I'm not going to be happy until we get to the point where we can put $2 million, $2.5 million. Again, maybe that's a dream, but as money comes available. In a roundabout way, this is money that would still go towards that equation. But again, that would be one concern. But the only other concern well, Mayor Decker had touched on them too. Worst streets, rating, according to the rating sheets. But one of the biggest concerns is counting our chickens before they're hatched in that $351,000 that we're banking on for the MFT increase. Again, I'm going to be a little more conservative until I know what that number is. But I like this approach. I think it makes sense from a holistic perspective. And again, if it's Panakan, Marion, or any other street, I think in the end, those streets will be very well taken care of for years to come. But again, we're going to get some feedback on if they're not the worst streets. But but overall, I'm for this approach. It's the big question is whether we can find 351K to put towards this program or not.
Well, if I might, and I'm sure that our finance guys here, and you've corrected me before when I've said something wrong, so I'm sure you'll do it again. Motor fuel tax has to be spent on our roads, has to be.
Oh, I agree.
And one of the things that we have to do with the motor fuel tax is we have to get the engineering done. We have to pay for the engineering to make the motor fuel tax state gods happy. But there are times that if we have it in our own budget, in our own general fund to do, we can take off and do a street unencumbered by all the state rules and regulations. We just need to have a common sense approach to this, and we have Midwest engineering can be utilized, and I've been pushing, and I really want to see the city hire its own engineer and become a part of this. I think there's a place to where we can do stuff like this very, very well at a way less cost on this. And I know that we've talked about this before, and one of these days, especially if this project gets started, I think that's going to be really important. But until we get our feet wet and we know what we have to look forward to and we know the pitfalls of this, I think that we just need to pull up our pants and really take a really good hard look at this, approve the money, and get this bid out. And unless they're really busy out there, and that's the scare part, we need to get our bids out there at a reasonable time, because if you get them out there too late, toward the beginning of spring and stuff, the contractors have already got their plates filled up. And they like to bid things, just like I would and I do. I like to bid things in the middle of winter. I'm hungry. I want to make sure I have work for my people, and I can keep my key people by having work. And so this is really important to get this show on the road as soon as possible.
I guess I just have a couple thoughts, and some of them will echo what the other commissioners have said. The approach seems to make sense as far as why you fix a street when you may have to tear that street up in 5 years. So I think from that perspective, that makes sense to me. I think a concern I have, or something I would really want to think about or hear public input in, is, and I always say I'm not great at math, but what I'm hearing is it's about 25. We could increase our overall street maintenance budget by approximately 25% if we don't go this route. 300,000, 1.2 million, that's 25% of it, right? Make sure. So, I mean, if you don't go this route and the increase in motor fuel tax comes through, which will come through, you could increase the street maintenance budget by 25%, which means we fix 25% more streets, albeit not the exact way that this plan goes through, but it is fixing more streets, and I know that streets are a big concern of a lot of our citizens. It's the number one thing that we heard when we talked to people during the election. So I think that the process, I understand it, and I think it does make sense to me. A concern I would have would be the overall cost of it, and where that might set us back on our plan to continue to try to improve streets. The other thing, and not that I'm not picking streets, but these are two not very well-traveled streets. I mean, you still have some streets that people, Pinecrest, Highview, Centennial, and I know those are big projects, and I know those are projects that we've talked about trying to get money for doing, but those are streets that are well-traveled that we hear a lot about. So I'm open to looking at it, and it kind of makes sense, but the cost does concern me, and what what that might do to our overall plan. The other thing that I will say, and I know that the engineering costs are on the agenda, I'd be curious I haven't heard a lot of talk about this, citizens talking about this. I mean, I know Commissioner Sutherland, he has talked about this, and I've heard him, but I'd be curious what the public input would be regarding how the citizens feel about it.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of the comments that were stated here. Here's a question I have, and it goes into next fiscal year, budget-wise. We also have the PUATS project at Riverside and Camp, those improvements. And I know the city had not allocated the funds to date anyway, at least we didn't in this last budget for that. And I can't remember, is that a fiscal year 2021 or is that 21, 22?
I know construction is expected to be at the second half of the season next year,
Okay.
which would be after July 4th.
But that would fall into next fiscal year.
That would potentially fall into next fiscal year with those funds to be due. Sometimes when you get a project of that caliber, it takes time. We had an issue with Centennial several years ago where sometimes it takes year 2 and year 3 to actually get all the final bills in above and beyond the project year. So with that project beginning sometime after July 4th and finishing August, September, sometime at the end of September, early October, by the time they get around to actually getting us invoice for all that stuff, we could be beyond that next fiscal year of April before we actually start getting the final bills for that.
So, some concern, first of all, I love the concept, and I know Commissioner Sutherland's talked about this since we were sworn in. The concept on its face value makes perfect sense. I mean, why would you lay down a new stretch of road and then 2 months later you have a water main break, we're out tearing it up? I understand that. From a financial standpoint, that's where I'm not at that level. I mean, I look back what we've spent on street maintenance, and here's a concern. To allocate funds that we don't have, that's one thing. I do believe the funds will come through. How we allocate them, that's a different story. And I look at the historical side of it, what the city has spent on annual street maintenance, and we've missed the mark for, as long as I can remember. So my concern would be we fall further behind to focus and spend all the funds on a project like this. In the meantime, everything else is falling apart behind us. And then where are we at down the road? And I understand, Commissioner Sutherland, I don't mean any disrespect. I think the concept makes perfect sense in an ideal world, which we don't live in, and financially the city's not in that position, just in my humble opinion. So I'm a little bit leery on spending money moving forward with this project, just me personally, is my opinion, when I know we have additional costs like that project, which will have to come before council anyway, and the council will determine whether or not they want to fund that project down the road. But I know it's in the pipeline, and it has been for a couple of years. I think everyone's goal is to improve our streets. I mean, I heard everybody loud and clear this entire year, so I think everybody's on board with achieving that goal. How we get there is a different story. So, yeah, this is going to be interesting. And I don't remember the dollar amount of that project. I didn't think of it until we started talking about allocating future funds.
And I don't remember what it was. I just know it was significantly less than what the original roundabout requirement was. I don't remember what those.
No, I understand the roundabout one. I'm talking back up. We have another project
Yeah.
in the pipeline.
That's
which
the
is
21-22 project.
correct. So, and some of those funds will have to be allocated in the next fiscal year ahead of that project. So I have a lot of concerns, and I'm just throwing that out there for full transparency. I like the concept, don't know that I'm on board right now. We have a lot of stuff on our plate, so I want to make sure that we get time for public comments, but if you guys have any other comments you want to add or questions?
No, I just want money.
Don't we all? All right. Anyone in the audience wish to make comments on this topic? Please come forward. Mr. Norberts?
Couple questions. What is the life of the street and utilities once they're laid down new? How many years will that street be good for?
I defer to the experts.
What I would tell you is, the average life of a clay sewer pipe is between 50 and 60 years. They're expecting the average life of the current plastics that are being used out there to be 100 plus. And this would, of course, replace all of the manhole structures as well as all of those pipes in the ground with the new plastics.
So in the water the same way, everything, you're talking 100 years, so everything in the ground is going to be good for a very long time.
Yes.
So what's the life of the street?
Well, there are a
You're
couple
probably-
factors. I'll let Rick answer, but one thing we have to keep in mind is if we put down a street and do nothing to it, or put down a street and do maintenance throughout. But
Yeah, a new construction like this, or like what the commissioner's talking about, you're probably looking at 20 years, 15 to 20 years on
15 to 20
on the
is-
pavement surface,
Is all you're going to get out of the pavement?
out of the surface.
So-
Correct. That's not the curbs and gutters or the storm sewer.
What's the current projected maintenance for that area?
I don't know off the top of my
Is
head.
the
Your
street
general
bad?
maintenance would be seal coating.
So, and if you blow a valve, saddles, or, you know, you're out there
Repaired
digging
as,
holes,
yeah,
you're
as
talking
it
about
happens
spending
or
some.
what have you.
So, I'm looking at, can we recoup the dollars? Does it make sense, once you're out there, dig it up, do it right? You know, I've always learned that if you're gonna take a wall down, make sure you fix what's behind it.
that's a good
So-
point. Have we looked at that? I guess over the life of the next 20 years, replacement of, do we have numbers that are easy to pull up on that?
For the replacement of,
If I remember, or if I think of what you're saying, Don, like instead of fixing a street and then fixing the repairs on the sewer and the water as time goes on, doing it all at once and then not having those expenses, is that what you're saying?
Correct, yeah, so you fix the street, you walk away for X
Right.
number of years, now you concentrate on others. You have a gain in maintenance costs here, you know, that you're not spending that you can put elsewhere. You know, what's the ROI on the project?
Right.
Has anybody run the numbers?
Those are real, very, very difficult numbers to come up with because of so many variations in the age of the existing system. Some of them systems have been on the ground for 60, 70, 80 years.
Yeah, I mean, that area was
So
built in the
they're-
50s,
yeah,
60s, you know?
They're coming up on their life, they're done.
Yeah, you're at the life of,
So it's hard to predict.
you know,
that.
you got what, 4-inch main in there, so, I mean, how much more can that handle? You're doing a sewer project. To me, the project seems to make sense, that you can go out and do this project, you know, take this off. I mean, you can look at a lot of different ways. You're talking a quarter mile of streets that you're gonna repair versus, you know, 2 miles that you could, you know, seal coat. What's the value? You know, I mean, if it was my street that was bad that's not getting done, it's more value to me than it is. But overall, that I think that
Well,
The
let
money
me,
is
let me,
gonna be
let me
well
try to answer
spent.
your question. This is what Craig Loudermilk said, and I really respect this guy. He's a pretty cool guy. He said, don't take away from your street repairs. You leave that money there for the street repairs, and you keep doing the street repairs. When you start doing revamping of these streets like this, you need to come up with, I don't want to say new money, but new money. We have lots of city bonds that are going to be coming offline, and money's going to be going back into our coffers in the next 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years, right? It's way down the road. So if we could somehow get this stretch in until those bonds start coming back in and we're not paying out, if I'm saying this correctly, then that's the money we are supposed to be using to run the city, and we're paying off our loans.
yeah.
That goes into the point that I was trying to stress. We can't take away from our standard maintenance, and sadly, the city hasn't spent enough money on the standard maintenance. You know, 9 years ago, we should have been spending $3 to $3.5 million a year on street maintenance.
Right, how many miles of
Yeah.
streets do you have?
How many
And you
lane
could do-
miles?
We have
It's
148.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's somewhere between 139 and 148, depending on which numbers
So
you.
you're looking at $400 million in how many years?
That's
You're
exactly
you're never
right.
gonna get there.
I know.
You know.
Well, a lot of these streets and stuff already have plastic sewers, and they already have updated water lines. Not every street needs to be done, and like I said at the beginning of this conversation, there's a lot of streets up in Sunnyland that we have no responsibility down below the streets, because American Water Systems bought into their systems. There's Sundale, that was private when we took over Sunnyland, and it has stayed private. We do have some stuff up there, but not everything belongs to us. So when we start counting miles of streets, that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to replace miles of sewer and miles of water to match that.
Hey, Don, if you don't mind wrapping up your comments, I
Yeah.
want to be respectful and make sure we close on time.
In my opinion, I think it's a good project.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak to the council? Seeing no one. In light of time, I think I would seek a motion to adjourn this working session.
So moved, Mayor.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
Aye.
Mayor Call?
Aye.
All present voting aye, Your Honor.
Thank you. This regular meeting of the East Peoria City Council to order, please.
Commissioner
Roll call.
Decker?
Sorry.
Here.
Hill?
Here.
Mingus?
Here.
Sutherland?
Here.
Mayor Call?
Here.
All present, Your Honor.
Thank you. Please rise for the invocation. Remain standing for the pledge.
Shall we pray? Heavenly Father, we are thankful for all the gifts you have given us at the start of this giving season. Help us, giving season. Help us open our eyes so we can see our blessings. Guide us in helping our neighbors and others in need. Thank you for this day. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of the minutes, please.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the minutes of the special meeting for a working session held on October 15th, 2019, and the minutes of the regular meeting held on October 15th, 2019 be approved as printed.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
Aye.
Mayor Call?
Aye.
All present voting aye, Your Honor.
Thank you. Before we get to the communications, I know the fire department is going to be presenting a check to the Susan G. Komen Memorial Fund, but I think we're waiting on Miss Kate Parker, correct?
She had car trouble, she's on her way.
Okay, so we'll circle back around. Yeah, go ahead.
I have three items under my name on the agenda. One of them is the firefighters' contract, the renewal of that. And at this point, I'm going to pull that item. We've had some positive conversations with the fire department and some of the city commissioners and the mayor, and we're going to go ahead and pull that at this point, and hopefully we will have something to approve at our next council meeting.
Very good, thanks, Commissioner. With that, while we're waiting, we can circle back around, can we not? So, very good, we'll go on. Commissioner Hill? Consent?
Okay, Mr. Mayor.
Your
I
Honor,
mo-
public comments first.
Oh, I apologize. Yep, left out the public comments, which is very important. We have a big crowd here. Any public comments on an agenda item? Anything on the agenda anyone wishes to address the council? Please come forward. Seeing no one. Thank you for that reminder. Commissioner Hill?
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt a consent agenda consisting of items numbered 1 through 4. Item number 1, adoption of resolution number 1920-079, resolution to approve payment of the scheduled bills listed on schedule number 12 in the amount of $1,972,677.76. Item number 2, adoption of resolution number 1920-068 on the second reading, resolution approving new sign lease agreement with Adams Outdoor Advertising LP for 2200 East Washington Street. That's the Felipe Building. Item number 3, adoption of resolution number 1920-066 on its second reading, resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement between the city and the county of Tazewell for animal and rabies control services. Item number 4, adoption of resolution number 1920-069 on its second reading, resolution authorizing and approving the purchase of 8 2020 Dodge Durango all-wheel drive police service vehicles and the outfitting of such vehicles for the police department in the amount of $333,696 as listed on the agenda for this meeting to be considered by omnibus vote.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
Aye.
Mayor Call?
Aye.
All present voting aye, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I move that items number 1 through 4 listed on the consent agenda be hereby approved and adopted, and the items number 2 through 4, having been read once by their title and having laid on the table for no less than 1 week for public inspection, be adopted as presented.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Take your pick.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
Aye.
Mayor Call?
Aye.
Present voting aye, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I have 11 items tonight. So let's get started. Mr. Mayor, I move that ordinance number 4461, hereto attached, an ordinance providing for the sale of excess city property at 125 Maria Street be accepted on its first reading as read by its title and be laid on the table for no less than 1 week for public inspection.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker.
What we have here is, as it says, excess property, 125 Maria Street. It's been in the city's possession. It came, I believe, as a foreclosure, and we've had it in our property for a couple of years. The regulations that dictate our sale of this property, that we get at least 80% of our appraised value is 80,000 or 8,000, this lot, and we've got a contract for its sale for 6,400.
Any other discussion? I'll just point out, this property here is actually one that was struck by the tornado in 2013, and the house was demoed, and it's been sitting there, looking pretty ugly since, so it'd be good to get it off our books. Roll call?
Commissioner Hill, Decker,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Mingus,
Aye.
Sutherland,
Aye.
Mayor Call.
Aye.
All present voting aye, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I move that ordinance number 4462 hereto attached, an ordinance authorizing a second amendment to the conditions imposed on the special use granted with respect to property located on East Washington Street near its intersection with Sunrise Avenue in the city of East Peoria, Tazewell County, Illinois, be read at length by the clerk and that said ordinance number 4462 be accepted on its reading and hereby adopted as presented.
May I have a second?
Second.
Very good. Thanks, Commissioner Decker. Morgan?
Whereas pursuant to ordinance number 4370, approved on January 16, 2018, the City Council authorized a special use for the purpose of permitting the placement of a community solar project on property zoned as C Conservation and Residential Estate District located on East Washington Street near its intersection with Sunrise Avenue, which property is shown and described at Exhibit A, attached hereto and incorporated herein by reference, which property is hereinafter described as the property. Whereas on September 18, 2018, the City Council approved ordinance number 4414 regarding the special use on the property, which authorized a large solar project to be placed on the property pursuant to a change in Illinois law regarding the size of community solar projects. And whereas Fond du Lac Solar LLC, the petitioner, was unable to secure a renewable energy credit from the state of Illinois for the proposed community solar project during the initial procurement phase, and petitioner has now requested an extension of the time period set forth in ordinance number 4370 for establishing the special use permitted by ordinance number 4370 as amended by ordinance number 4414 to allow petitioner to secure the renewable energy credit from the state during the procurement process during one of the two upcoming fiscal years for the petitioner's proposed community solar project on the property. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of East Peoria, Tazewell County, Illinois, that Section 1, Condition Number 5 imposed on the operation of the special use approved by the property by ordinance number 4370 and as amended by ordinance number 4414 is hereby modified as follows. 5. Provisions of Section 5-11-10G1 of the zoning code to the contrary notwithstanding, special use authorized by this ordinance shall not expire by virtue of any failure to establish a special use until December 31st, 2022. Except as specifically modified by this ordinance, the conditions applicable to the special use approved by ordinance number 4370 as amended by ordinance number 4414 shall continue to apply as therein stated. Section 2, this ordinance is hereby ordered to be published in pamphlet form by the East Peoria City Clerk, and said clerk is ordered to keep at least 3 copies hereof available for public inspection in the future in accordance with the Illinois Municipal Code. Section 3, this ordinance is in addition to all other ordinances on the subject and shall be construed therewith excepting as to that part in direct conflict with any other ordinance, and in the event of such a conflict, the provisions here shall govern. Section 4, this ordinance shall be in full force and effect from and after its passage, approval, and 10-day period of publication in the manner provided by law.
Okay, on this, as you heard there, this is property at Sunrise and East Washington Street, and it's a community solar project. And so, no fault of the petitioner, this is just merely an extension of the already issued special use so that they can get the proper permitting through the states, through the different processes, the different cycles at the state level.
Well said. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
Aye.
Mayor Call?
Aye.
All present voting aye, Your Honor.
Very good. So I understand the fire department is ready for their communications piece. So with that being said, ladies, you want to step forward? Welcome.
Hello.
Hi.
We've got a presentation for Susan G. Komen of a check for $1,104, which is the proceeds from these lovely T-shirts. We sell them each year. Public has the ability to buy them. But I'd like to thank Doug McCarty and his staff, and especially Jill and Chief for allowing us to wear them for the whole month of October and just spreading awareness. So we'd like to present a check to you, Katie.
Can I cash this?
Yes.
No, and I just want to say thank you real quick. This is really exciting. I apologize if I shared this statistic last year, but I think it's pretty important that this amount can pay for 10 mammograms for uninsured or underinsured women in our 36 county service area. And that's pretty important because we know that detection, early detection is the key to survival rate. So thank you guys so much for your support.
Very good. Okay, very good. Appreciate what you guys do. I know you've done that for a number of years, and I think it's a great cause. I think it's a great effort put by all, so appreciate that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hill, we'll go back to you, sir.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I move that ordinance number 4464 here to attach an ordinance changing the zoning classification of certain real estate located at 400 to 422 East Washington Street in the city of East Peoria, Tazewell County, Illinois, be accepted on its first reading as read by its title and be laid on the table for no less than 1 week for inspection.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. This property is just east of Springfield Road. It's currently zoned for B1, and the request here that came from the Zoning Board of Appeals was unanimous that it would be increased to B2. It gives them more opportunity for other potential uses in that particular address area, or that building facility there.
Any other comments, discussion from the council? Hearing none, roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
Aye.
Mayor Call?
Aye.
All present voting aye, Your Honor.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Mayor, move that ordinance number 4465 here to attach an ordinance amending location and buffer requirements for medical cannabis businesses under the City of East Peoria zoning code be accepted on its first reading as read by its title and be laid on the table for no less than 1 week for inspection.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker.
Okay, what we have here is the amending of the medical cannabis code to make it consistent with the personal use code that went through a month or so ago in a previous meeting. So what we have here in the changes is the types of uses the facilities are able to be separated from, and then the key thing here is how to measure that distance. The distance is measured from building to building. The ZBA actually voted to not accept this as stated, and the reason being that they preferred the lot line to lot line. But what we're hearing tonight is that we are going to keep that consistent with the personal use cannabis code, and it's going to be from building to building location.
Any other discussion, comments from the council? Hearing none, roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
Aye.
Mayor Call?
Aye,
All present voting aye, Your Honor.
thank you.
Okay, resolution number 1920-072, be it resolved by the Council of the City of East Peoria, Illinois, that the reappointment of, by Mayor John P. Call of Ty Livingston, Director of Planning and Community Development, to the Tri-County River Valley Development Authority Board of Directors be hereby approved for a term beginning the third Monday in 2018 and ending in the third Monday of 2021, and that this resolution, number 1920-072, be adopted as presented.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Mingus.
Okay, what we have here is the reappointment of Ty Livingston to the Valley Development Authority Board as the resolution there read. The group offers federal and state tax exempt bonds, which are typically for more attractive, or which are typically more attractive for bond buyers. So it's important for East Peoria to have representation on this board, and I think Ty will do a great job representing East Peoria.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
Aye.
Mayor Call?
Aye.
For President again, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I move that, let's see, Madam Clerk, I've got, do I read this, or did I already skip over that? I just did the second part of it already? Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
All right. Mr. Mayor, I move that ordinance number 4466 here to attach, an ordinance adding new section 1.1-8-10 to the city code, establishing a long-term debt policy for the city of East Peoria, be read at length by the clerk, and that said ordinance number 4466 be accepted on its first reading and hereby adopted as presented.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Madam Clerk?
Whereas the City Council has determined from time to time that it is necessary and prudent to issue debt for capital improvements and other projects that provide long-term benefit to the city, and whereas the capital improvement projects undertaken by the city and financed by long-term debt have included redevelopment projects in tax incremental financing districts established within the city TIF districts, infrastructure improvement projects in special service areas and special assessment areas, and improvements to the city's combined waterworks and sewerage system. And whereas the City Council may also determine from time to time that it is necessary and prudent to issue long-term debt from other permissible municipal purposes that provide long-term benefit for the city without placing undue strain on the city's financial resources and reserves. And whereas the City Council hereby finds that it is in the best interest of the city to establish a long-term debt policy that clearly articulates the city's policy goals regarding the use of debt, provides guidance with debt management, and demonstrates the city's commitment to long-term capital and financial planning. And whereas the City Council further finds that it is in the best interest of the city to reduce these matters into a formal written policy, creating and sending forth the parameters of the city's long-term debt policy, as provided herein that will be applicable to the City Council and to future councils. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of East Peoria, Tazewell County, Illinois, that Section 1, the above recitations are found to be true and correct and hereby incorporated herein. Section 2, Title 1, Chapter 8, Section 9 is hereby added to the City Code for the City of East Peoria as follows. 1-8-10, Debt Policy for the City of East Peoria. 1-8-10.1 Purpose. In order to establish sound, long-term financial planning for the city, the purpose of this policy is to ensure that the city's financial stability by establishing a long-term debt policy that clearly articulates the city's policy goals regarding the use of long-term debt, provides guidance with long-term debt management, and demonstrates the city's commitment to long-term capital and financial planning. This policy establishes parameters under which the city will consider and incur long-term debt for capital projects and other municipal purposes to provide a long-term benefit to the city. 1-8-10.2 Long-Term Debt Policy. When reviewing and approving whether city will incur long-term debt, the following policies shall be used. A, city will limit long-term borrowing to financing the cost of necessary capital improvements and other projects that provide continuing benefit to the city and which cannot be financed from current fund balances. B, the city will set the repayment schedule of debt as short as financially possible, but in no case shall the duration of the city's long-term debt obligations extend beyond the anticipated useful life of the assets financed. C, city's debt limit is set by state statutes at 8.625% of the city's equalized assessed valuation. D, the city will consider refunding debt whenever an analysis indicates the potential for present value savings is in excess of 3% of the principal being refunded. E, the city will employ the assistance and expertise of qualified professional advisors when considering debt issuance. F, the city will select the method of issuing debt based on achieving the lowest true interest cost. G, the city will fully comply with all debt compliance and continuing disclosure requirements established by bond covenants and federal and state laws. H, the city will not use derivatives for the purpose of debt management. Section 3, this ordinance is hereby ordered to be published in pamphlet form by the city clerk, and said clerk is ordered to keep at least 3 copies hereof available for public inspection in the future in accordance with the Illinois Municipal Code. Section 4, this ordinance is in addition to all other ordinances on the subject and shall be construed therewith except as to that part in direct conflict with any other ordinance, and in the event of such conflict, the provisions hereof shall govern. Section 5, this ordinance shall be in full force and effect from and after its passage, approval, and any period of publication in the manner provided by law.
Okay. And all that was the formalization of the debt policy. And you may have noticed in the last couple meetings, we've had a debt policy. Obviously, tonight, we've established a fund balance policy. And all those elements go into, as the ordinance stated at the beginning, strengthening our financial position. And one of the things that many people don't know is by having those policies in place, even though we might have been following those, but having them contribute to, are considered as part of when we go to a bond rating, and bond rating is, for the city, it determines how much it costs us to borrow money. So that's what we're doing with these policy statements, and formalizing those is improving our financial strength.
Go ahead.
I don't want to say much, Mayor. Looking over this, at first I thought I saw an issue that I asked Dennis about before, and the word derivatives. Just looking into it made me a bit concerned, because the way I read that, thinking that we couldn't take into account money being made by a project that we brought online. That's not the case. Speaking with Dennis, it's something very different, so I am fully in support of this, Mayor.
Very good. Any other comments from the commissioners? Hearing none. As I said with the fund policy at the last meeting, these are 2 very prudent things to do, and Commissioner Hill stated the reasons for them, so I'll be supporting this as well. Roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
Aye.
Mayor Call?
Aye.
Did you say aye?
That was an aye, yeah.
Okay. I have
It's
all
quite aye.
present voting aye, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I move that ordinance number 4459 hereto attached, an ordinance amending the residency provision of the City of East Peoria Personnel Policy Manual be read at length by the clerk, and that said ordinance number 4459 be accepted on its first reading and be hereby adopted as presented.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Mingus. Madam Clerk?
Whereas the City of East Peoria established its personnel policy manual by ordinance number 2474 in November 1990, which has been subsequently amended and updated by various ordinances, including a significant revision and reissuance in July 2014 by ordinance number 4173, whereas the City Council finds that additional revisions and clarifications to the residency provision of the personnel policy manual are necessary in the best interest of the city and its employees, whereas by making these revisions and clarifications to the personnel policy manual, City Council is not taking any action intended to create any contractual rights for any city employee or to change employee rights that are governed by a bargaining agreement for any employee group. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of East Peoria, Tazewell County, Illinois, that Section 1, the following sections of the city's personnel policy manual are hereby amended or added as follows. Additions are indicated by underline, deletions by strikeout. Section 2.1, residency requirement. To foster community involvement and the employment of its citizens, city will give favorable consideration to city residents for full-time employment with city where other employment factors are relatively equal. All full-time city employees hired after June 30th, 2019, and those employees who held the positions of police chief, fire chief, city administrator, city clerk, and director of public works on June 30th, 2019, and thereafter, as a condition of employment shall, as soon as practicable, be it, but in no case more than 12 months after commencement of employment, establish and maintain residence within the city's corporate limits or within 1 1/2 miles of the city's corporate limits, in an unincorporated area. The residency requirement established by this section 2.7 shall apply to any part-time employee who becomes a full-time city employee regardless of when the part-time employee was first employed by the city. Section 2, this ordinance is hereby ordered to be published in pamphlet form by the city clerk. Said clerk is ordered to keep at least 3 copies hereof available for public inspection in the future and in accordance with the Illinois Municipal Code. Section 3, this ordinance is in addition to all other ordinances on the subject and shall be construed therewith, except as that part in direct conflict with any ordinance, and in the event of such a conflict, the provisions hereof shall govern. Section 4, this ordinance shall be in full force and effect from and after its passage, approval, and 10-day period of publication in the manner provided by law. Section 5, the City Human Resources Director is directed to furnish a copy of these changes to the Personnel Policy Manual to all city employees when future dates are provided to city employees.
Thank you.
Okay, and as that was stated, the council had recently amended the residency requirements, and this is just a clarification. There were really 2 areas, again, clarifying that how residency requirement applies to those employed before 7/1 of 19, and then the other point was clarifying that this applies to part-time, somebody part-time that may later become full-time.
Discussion?
Mayor, I know there's been quite a bit of discussion recently about my employment, but this is a policy manual, personnel policy manual, and it definitely does cover me in my employment, so I am going to abstain on this tonight.
Understood. Any other comments? Hearing none, roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Abstain.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
Aye.
Mayor Call?
Aye.
4 ayes and 1 abstention, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Be it resolved by the Council of the City of East Peoria, Illinois, that Resolution 1920-070 hereto attached, resolution approving cleaning services contract for city buildings with Personal Touch Service Solutions, Inc. be approved. Mr. Mayor, I move that this resolution number 1920-070 be accepted on its first reading and be read by its title and be laid on the table for no less than 1 week for inspection, public inspection.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker.
Well, first I want to commend Robert Cole for taking the RFP process for, again, the cleaning services for all the city buildings. The RFP went out. There were 5 bids that came in. Robert went through the process of checking references and holding follow-up meetings to fully make sure all parties understood the requirements of the job of the cleaning services. And so the lowest responsible bid here was for $101,883. And that's for 1 year with 2 one-year extensions possible. And I'll look towards Robert. Did anything to add?
I think he covered it well.
Okay.
All right. Discussion from the council?
Yeah, if I may, Your Honor, I'm not opposed to the contract. I do have a couple questions regarding the math, and I could have done it wrong, or maybe there's something that I missed, so I'm not saying it's wrong. I just want to seek clarification. I understand the east side is done a little different, so I'll just jump to the public works because that may be easier. It says janitorial services, 546 hours at $18 an hour, and then the number after that is $10,278. But when you times 546 hours times $18 an hour, that doesn't equal $10,278. So is there you're shaking your head, so
Well, I'm going to ask that you step up here so the folks watching the meeting can hear you.
Good evening, gentlemen. I'm Joyce Harris, the president of Personal Touch Service Solutions. Thank you very much for allowing me to be here and address you tonight, and also for considering our bid. I could understand that might be somewhat confusing. We voluntarily wanted you to know how we anticipated spending our hours. Typically in a bid process, since it's not time and material, it's a straight bid. Typically, we wouldn't include those. We wanted you to see how we were allocating time, and we wanted Robert and his team to know where we were going to be putting that time. It does not, however, include things like materials and what we have to consider for our equipment. So the difference between the number of the hours times the hourly rate of $18 an hour and the final number is what I have to allot in there for materials and our equipment that we would use in each of the buildings.
So there's a material cost included. It's not written in there, but there's a material cost
Yes.
included in each of those.
That's the difference.
And then the bid form, it says $8,006.92 a month for the cleaning services, and then underneath it says the carpet, see below, and it would be $1,200 a month. So when you add $8,006.92, I think that's $96,000, and then the $1,200 would be $14,400. That is more than 101. How does that? Is my question making sense?
Was that with the, I think it is. We bid two ways on the carpet and hard floors since they were two separate requests for proposal. One that we were turning in is if we received the janitorial bid as well. If we're maintaining the carpets on a daily or weekly or twice weekly basis, we know the condition that they're going to be in when our team that cleans them comes in. If someone else had received the bid for the janitorial, but you decided to give us the bid for the carpet care, it was going to, and the hard floor care, it was going to be higher because I don't know how another company would take care of it. I know how we'll take care of it. So from what I understand in working with Mr. Cole is that the numbers that came out to the 101 was to take the option of if we had both the janitorial and the specialty care together, it actually lowered the cost for the city.
It does. I just want to, and I'm just making sure I understand, because if you take 80692 times 12, that's $96,083.
Yes.
And then underneath that, on the bid form, it says the carpet or hardwood floors, see below, would be an additional $1,200 a month.
Unfortunately, I don't have my numbers right in front of me for the breakdown of whether it was with or without the contract. So I apologize, I can't address that.
Because there are two separate, in the other, there are two separate numbers too. They just don't, and they probably, I'm not saying they don't, to me,
Sure.
when I look at it, they don't add up.
Well, I'll make sure that I get that clarification back to you.
Okay, thank you.
I
Thank you.
appreciate that as well. I was, right before the meeting, I was speaking with Mark about that. And that does make sense. I was wondering if there might be some supply costs in there. So just to clarify, tonight, we're voting on the total amount of 101,883.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Any other comments, discussion? Hearing none, all valid questions. Roll call?
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
Aye.
Mayor Call?
Aye.
All present voting aye, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Okay, be it resolved by the Council of the City of East Peoria, Illinois, that Resolution 1920-078 hereto attached, a resolution approving and authorizing the acceptance of a low bid for the public safety fuel dispenser replacement project from Illinois Oil Marketing Equipment, Inc., in the amount of $35,402.22 be approved. Mr. Mayor, I move that this resolution number 1920-078 be accepted on its first reading as read by its title and be laid on the table for no less than 1 week for public inspection.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker.
What we have is this is the replacement of the original fuel dispensers behind the public safety building, and they were put in 1986. And so they are in, let's say, sad shape and definite need of replacement. And what this new hardware and dispensers also afford us is that with the newer technology that there's improvements in the fuel management and the reporting that are going to be possible coming out of this fuel dispenser. There were 2 bids. Lowest responsible bid, as it was stated there, was the Illinois Oil Marketing Equipment Group for $35,402. The other bid was $53,490 from TPS.
Very good. Discussion? I can tell you, I've sat back and watched Robert Cole bring this before at least 2, if not 3, or more councils as a priority, and it got shuffled off due to the cost. And I am very grateful for this council for seeing the benefit for the good old-fashioned taxpayers by putting this forward. It's long overdue, so appreciate all the efforts by everybody involved.
I know I should have said this, Mayor, earlier, but not only is it good for that, this will assist our mechanics.
Yes, it
in
will.
tracking the fuel mileage for the vehicles. It's great to have this in place.
I agree. Roll call?
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Aye.
Mingus? Sutherland?
Aye.
Mayor Call?
Aye.
All present voting aye, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I move that ordinance number 4463 hereto attached, an ordinance amending liquor control regulations in Title III, Chapter 3 of the City Code to prohibit video gaming cafes be accepted on its first reading as read by its title and be laid on the table for no less than 1 week for public inspection.
I have a second, please.
Second.
Take your pick.
Thank you, Mr. Mingus. Commissioner Mingus. All right, what we have here is that let me find where my, okay. After reviewing the city's current business environment in relation to the businesses that operate in the city with liquor license and gaming, it was decided that the video gaming cafes were not in the best interest of the city, and so this ordinance actually blocks video gaming cafes.
And before we open it for discussion, Morgan, do you have to read anything on this? Just remind me.
No.
Nothing? Nothing tonight? Okay, just wanted to make sure. Any discussion by the council?
I just have a question.
Sure.
What you're saying in my language is no standalone video gaming.
Is what this basically specifies, so all those holding a liquor license can have up by law, can have a certain number of machines, is what this is stating is, that's fine for those establishments to have the machines, but we don't want the cafes, if you will?
Yeah, the standalone
Correct.
places without, yeah.
Yes.
Got it.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
Aye.
Mayor Call?
Aye,
All present voting aye, Your Honor.
thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I move that you that ordinance number 4467 hereto attached, an ordinance amending Title III, Chapter 3 of the East Peoria City Code to change the number of Class A and D liquor licenses authorized to be issued within the corporate limits of the city. Be read at length by the clerk, and that said ordinance number 4467 be accepted on its first reading and hereby adopted as presented.
Have a second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker.
And what we have here is the, oh, you need to read it first.
She does. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of East Peoria, Tazewell County, Illinois, that Title III, Chapter 3, Section 1.10 of the East Peoria City Code is hereby amended to read as follows. Additions are indicated by underline, deletions by strikeout. 3-3-1.10 licenses limitation upon number issued, so that the health, safety, and welfare of the people of the city shall be protected, and minors shall be prevented from the purchase of alcoholic liquors, and temperance in the consumption of alcoholic liquor shall be fostered and promoted. A, no additional Class A licenses shall be issued under the provisions of this chapter unless the number of such licenses in force at the time shall be less than 15. D, no additional Class D licenses shall be issued under the provisions of this chapter unless the number of such licenses in force at the time shall be less than 22. Provided, however, that upon the surrender and cancellation of an existing license, the local liquor control commission may issue such license to a person who has purchased the business or premises of the prior licensee, provided further that in the event of annexation of any territory to the city, which territory there is located any business, property for which a valid county retail liquor license has been issued, and enforced at the date of such annexation, local liquor control commission is empowered to authorize the issuance of a new license strictly under the provisions of this code to the person named in the county retail liquor license issued for such business or property, notwithstanding the foregoing limitations upon the number of licenses to be issued. Section 2, this ordinance is hereby ordered to be published in pamphlet form by the East Peoria City Clerk. Said clerk is ordered to keep at least 3 copies hereof available for public inspection in the future and in accordance with the Illinois Municipal Code. Section 3, this ordinance is in addition to all the ordinances on the subject, shall be construed therewith, excepting as to that part in direct conflict with any other ordinance, and in the event of such conflict, the provisions hereof shall govern. Section 4, this ordinance shall be in full force and effect from and after its passage, approval, and 10-day period of publication in the manner provided by law.
Thank you.
So this ordinance is changing the number, Class A Tavern from 16, or 15 down from 16, and Class D Restaurant down to 22 from 23. And occasionally, we review the licenses through the city, and this is a normal action.
Any other discussion from the council? Hearing none, roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
Aye.
Mayor Call?
Aye.
The opposing voting, aye, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, that is all I have tonight.
Outstanding. Commissioner Decker.
Mayor, before I get into my items, the first two items, we had a working session prior to. I believe there may be support in the future for those, but my understanding is people would like to look a little bit more, especially with the budgeting. So I'm going to pull these tonight for consideration next meeting.
Okay. And you mind specifying the
I'm
resolution numbers,
sorry
just
about
so
that.
we know
Yes,
for the
it's,
record?
Resolution number 1920-071, 1920-080.
Very good, thank you.
Mayor, I have resolution number 1920-073. Be it resolved by the Council of the City of East Peoria, Illinois, the resolution number 1920-073 hereto attached. A resolution authorizing the adoption of the Tri-County Multi-Jurisdictional Natural Hazards Mitigation Plan for the City of East Peoria be approved. Mr. Mayor, I move you that this resolution number 1920-073 be accepted on its first reading, as read by its title, be laid on the table for no less than 1 week for public inspection.
I have a second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Mingus.
Thank you, Commissioner Mingus. This is a plan for hazards, natural hazards, and years ago, I think Dennis and Chief Knapp sat and helped write the plan, if I'm not mistaken.
We worked on the new revision together, yes.
And this agreement, I passed it along, it is for 3 years?
5.
5 years, 5 years, thank you, sorry about that. It's for 5 years, and I don't know if you have anything else to say about it?
Basically, it's the Tri-County division all worked together to be able to put this plan together. This is about a 1,000-page document that deals with natural disasters, how they're handled, needs of the actual individual cities. This covers all the cities within their Tri-County area. We were a part of that. Like I said, Chief Knapp and myself attended the meetings together. We kind of tag teamed that. We had to miss meetings here and there. Ultimately, got all of our paperwork in to reestablish things that we had originally requested 5 years ago. This opens up a lot of grant opportunities through IEMA or FEMA in the event of a natural hazard or a natural disaster happening, as well as if the opportunity becomes available for funding that would help mitigate those in advance, i.e. stormwater issues or other things that money might become available. So we worked pretty diligently to get everything updated to what we believe to be our current needs of the entire group.
There are a lot of things that go on that many people don't think about. Things like this, for example, years back when Washington, East Peoria, and Pekin had the tornado that went through the area, found out how important it was to be part of a disaster plan and how difficult it is to recoup funding sometimes, having to jump through a lot of hoops to try to get as much money as we can back. Chief, would you like to say something about it as well?
No, Dennis and I, we enjoyed the process going through it, and you hope you never need it. So it worked well.
Any discussion by the council? Hearing none, roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
Aye.
Mayor Call?
Aye.
All present voting, aye, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Next, Mayor, resolution number 1920-074. Be it resolved by the Council of the City of East Peoria, Illinois, the resolution number 1920-074 hereto attached, a resolution approving an agreement between the City of East Peoria and Courtesy Bench Corp. LLC from November 1st, 2019 through November 31st, 2024 be approved. Mr. Mayor, I move you that this resolution, number 1920-074, be accepted on its first reading as read by its title and be laid on the table for no less than 1 week for public inspection.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Mingus.
Thank you, Commissioner Mingus. This is something that, as Ty said to me tonight, one good thing about this is a service that if this organization did not provide for us, we would need to provide. And there are a lot of people that use these throughout the town. Sometimes over the years, they've had some really neat things written on them. I know the Cubs winning the World Series was one of them. I really appreciated that one. But I think we receive a little over $4,000 annually for this, and it's something that is certainly needed.
Any other comments from the council? This is a 5-year agreement, and it is $4,056 per year, so. Roll call?
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
Aye.
Mayor Call?
Aye.
All present voting, aye, Your Honor.
Thank you.
That's all I have right now, Mayor.
Commissioner Sutherland?
I have one thing. Be it resolved by the Council of the City of East Peoria, Illinois, that resolution number 1920-075, hereto attached a resolution accepting and approving water and wastewater SCADA, S-C-A-D-A, hardware upgrade project proposal from Hart Technologies, Inc., in the amount of $45,350 be approved. Mr. Mayor, I move that the resolution number 1920-075 be accepted on its first reading as read by its title and laid on the table for no less than 1 week for public inspection.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill.
Basically, and I'm going to turn this over to Dennis here in a second, this has, and I tried to get out of this bill. I wanted it to be part of the sewer treatment plant things, and even though part of this system will 2 years from now be incorporated in with it, we can't wait 2 years, we need it now, and it wasn't part of the insurance on the other computer system, so we have to pay the full-born thing, and most of it's a one-time deal, but there will be some licensing fees from year to year on top of this, correct?
That is correct. This was a budgeted item in the IT budget line out of the water and sewer funding process. We began this project a little over a year ago, working on a SCADA master plan to kind of put all of our water and sewer SCADA on the same network and on the same systems. As we worked through that, but with our two vendors, which was Concentric, and then, of course, our in-house IT, which later became Hart Technologies, as we get closer to the finish line of this product, we've got these two groups recommending that this is, and agreeing with us that this is the direction we want to go. So basically, this is putting forward the new SCADA servers that's required for the water and the wastewater monitoring process. This allows our plants to be monitored and communicated by telephone rather than 24-hour operation by an actual person having to sit and watch what's going on.
Very good. Discussion?
Yeah, as part of this, my understanding the host will be moved here in a controlled environment?
That is correct. The one will be here, and a backup will also be held at our backup location at the festival building.
Good.
So therefore, we have both systems running at the same time in the same network process, so that if something happens here or there, the other system automatically picks it up and continues to operate. So we end up with a little bit better platform scenario. We end up with all of our IT in the same area, as well as local hosts there, which would be basically computers that tie back into the city. So it does streamline the process across the board, and it's the path we were planning to get there. This just happens to be the timing to get there as we're doing it.
Good. Yep,
And I
very
will
good.
point out, he was correct in his statement that these were budgeted out of the information technology line item 5050-0049 out of the sewer and water enterprise fund. So it's just a timing thing. I know Commissioner Sutherland's not happy about it, but anyhow. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Roll call?
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
Aye.
Mayor Call?
Aye.
All present voting, aye, Your Honor.
Thank
That's
you.
it, sir.
Okay. Commissioner Mingus.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have two items. Item number one, be it resolved by the Council of the City of East Peoria, Illinois, that resolution number 1920-076, hereto attached, a resolution authorizing an increase in the number of patrolmen on the East Peoria Police Department be approved. Mr. Mayor, I move you that this resolution number 1920-076 be accepted on its first reading as read by its title and being laid on the table for no less than 1 week for public inspection.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. This item directly relates to my second item, which is intergovernmental agreement with East Peoria School District 86 for a school resource officer. This would be the current, not the school resource officer agreement, but this current agreement would up our number of patrolmen from, and Chief Rogie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, 38 to 39 to make room for the school resource officer.
That's correct. So the total number of officers would be 40, going up from 48 to 49. So that's with sergeants and supervisors. Correct.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Roll call?
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
Aye.
Mayor Call?
Aye.
All present voting, aye, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Second item, Your Honor, be it resolved by the Council of the City of East Peoria, Illinois, that resolution number 1920-077, hereto attached, a resolution approving an agreement between the City of East Peoria Police Department and the East Peoria Grade School District 86 to provide school resource officer services be approved. Mr. Mayor, I move you that this resolution number 1920-077 be accepted on its first reading as read by its title and being laid on the table for no less than 1 week for public inspection.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. As stated, this is to add a school resource officer for School District 86. The cost of that resource officer to District 86 would be $82,000 in year one, and then would increase by 1.75. That's what the school district would pay to the city, and the city would incur any additional costs that that officer would cost beyond that $82,000. I know that the cost was looked at. School districts are in session for 180 days, and that officer would be assigned to the school district for the 180 days, and then the remaining days that that officer would work would be for the East Peoria Police Department, which is common practice with school resource officers. I can also say that from my perspective, the cost that the city has gives me a little reservation. However, knowing the importance of school safety and having worked in a district where there is a school resource officer, I think that they are a good service to the community. They truly are a resource for not only the administration and the school board and the teachers, but they're a resource for the kids also. And so I think that this is a positive move for our community.
Other discussion? I'd just like to point out, obviously, this first year, we're a little behind the 8 ball. This is a 3-year agreement. So the first year will be prorated because the officer will actually start in January when school gets back in session. Chief, would you like to make any comments?
Yeah, we were approached by Superintendent Ingold, and it was one of those that I believe is a great resource because the officer is not only going to be attached to junior high, but he's also going to be for all the feeder schools. So if there's any issues with any of the other schools, he's going to be a school resource officer is what it boils down to. With the part of it too is just the fact that the officer will be there in the schools with the kids. It is really a good thing for us to get to the kids at an early age, let them know that we're there to help and assist them in the best way we can.
Well said, and I know we have this program in place with District 309. It's been very successful, and I think it's going to be very successful for 86, and I know their school board, Chief, you attended their meeting, and they're on board with their agreement as well. So
That's correct.
very good. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
Aye.
Mayor Call?
Aye.
All present voting, aye, Your Honor.
Very good. Thank you.
That's all you have, Your Honor. All I have, Your Honor.
Perfect. Okay. So for those of you in the audience that wish to address the council on a non-agenda item, please step forward. Hey, Mr. Herman, come on up.
Hello, City Council and neighbors. So, first of all, I'm going to tell you guys, thanks for doing what you do. It takes a lot of time to do all that business and after hours, so thank you very much for doing that. I also would like to take this moment to thank the Army and the Green Berets and the Delta Force guys for getting rid of a bad actor in this world of ours. And so again, thanks Army and soldiers who did that. That leads me into another topic is our Veterans Day Parade here in East Peoria, which is coming up this Saturday at starting at 1 o'clock. We line up, and then 1:30 we actually step off. We have a lot of vehicles coming to the parade, so there's a lot of stuff that's historical, which is also involved in this parade. To get to this parade, though, we had a contest for the grade school kids to participate in. By doing that, the kids become the teachers who help push this. Use the contest for learning about the flag and American history and those kind of good things. And so we did have a bunch of entries come through, and they're posted right now at the library on the board there. And so the idea is the first place winner gets put on a flyer, and this is our flyer that came out this time. And this fellow here put a "God Bless America" with an eagle on it, and we used that in our flyer we put around town. And I would like to also read to make it official, the winners of our contest, make it public. The first contest winner was Adler Lomas. Second place winner was Emily Bell. Third place was Jordan Scheil. Fourth was Madeline Minson. Honorable mention was Aaron Weisenberg and Keely Kleski. Also came up, we become aware that some of these kids who, at least one of the kids who participated in this event had a note, and it said that her dad is currently in Afghanistan, and she wanted to dedicate her picture to her dad. So I thought that was pretty sweet. So anyhow, a lot of good topics on the arts on the board there, and we might like to invite the public to come down to the library to take a peek at all the pretty artwork. Anyhow, the kids do get something out of benefit out of it, and so does the people who look at the drawings. So thanks for your time, guys.
One more time, Mr. Herman, what's the parade route?
Parade route hasn't changed.
It kicks off
We go up
Columbia.
Washington, then we start behind the Goodwill store, and we head on to Washington, and we head towards Richland, and we pass in front of Costco, and we end up at the library parking lot.
Hopefully we have a pretty good crowd this year.
Hope so.
I hope so, too.
You line up at 1, it kicks off at 1:30.
That's right, and it's going to be kind of chilly, folks, so dress warm.
Very good.
Again, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. Anyone else in the audience wish to address the council on a non-agenda item? Please come forward. Seeing no one. Okay. Comments from the council. Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Mayor. I have two things. First of all, as we get into this time of year, plowing is going to be a big deal for the city of East Peoria. I say that because this year is especially difficult. The way our department is, with staffing, it's going to be difficult for us to fill all the trucks for every storm. We're going to do our best to do so, and we're going to do whatever we need to make the city streets safe. But I'm going to take this opportunity to, whenever you hear about a snowstorm coming, it's a snow event, move your vehicles off the street. It's thought that our plows could go 2 to 3 times faster if not for, just speed, just their ability to get around town, in and out of the streets, if not for all the cars parked on the street. I know there are a few streets around town that's almost impossible, that there is no off-street parking, and we understand that. But most streets in East Peoria, there is some sort of off-street parking. We have complaints every year from people about, it took a while to get to our house, and we recognize that. But then I also have people complain to me about their neighbors forgetting, usually, to bring their car inside. We have thought about creating more of an ordinance violation, and some communities do that as a way to deter people from parking on the street, and certainly something we've thought about. We don't want to do that. We'd rather people just adhere to the policy and make it better for all of our residents, so we can get our streets plowed as quickly as possible. Again, I say this about every year, what our plow drivers do is whenever an event is going on, during the snowstorm itself, our drivers stick to just the main routes. So they stick to the hills, those routes that are heavily traveled, and they do that for the purpose of making it as safe as possible. Yes, we want to get into the residential neighborhoods, but it's more important to make those main routes as safe as possible. Those are the ones that people can get hurt badly on. So you won't see our trucks in the neighborhoods during the snowstorm itself. After the event is done is when they finish the main routes, and then they get into the neighborhood. So I like to say that every year. If you have any questions, please feel free to call either myself or Public Works and talk with them, and we'll try to have a very safe year. It'd be nice if I know a lot of people don't feel this way. My kids are hoping for some snow days, but I am hoping that they don't even have to get their plows wet this year. They could just keep them inside all year. Finally, Mayor, I have one more item. Mr. Mayor, I move that a closed meeting or session of the City Council be held at the conclusion of this regular meeting to discuss the following matters according to exceptions provided in the Open Meetings Act, ILCS 121, and specified as follows. Section 2C1, the employment, appointment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity.
I have a second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Mingus.
Thank you.
Roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
Aye.
Mayor Call?
Aye.
All present voting aye, Your Honor.
Thank you.
That is all I have, Mayor.
All right, Commissioner Hill.
Nothing, Your Honor.
Commissioner Sutherland.
I got two things. The first is, last board meeting, I said something about pictures and videos and wanting to get them out to the public just to show you the construction that's going on at the sewer treatment plant construction. And Chief Rogie volunteered some of his staff to do some practice with their drones, which, to be perfectly frank with you, I didn't even know we had any drones. But we do. And so his guys took some videos of some of the construction areas, and tonight at 7:30 on Facebook, they're going to be, I don't know how to get around on Facebook. It's on the city site, and it's going to play every once in a while and be added to as we get more video and pictures of the construction site is being done over the next 2 years. So I haven't seen it yet, so somehow I want to watch it myself. And this is on a personal note. It's going to be a long night, and my significant other, it's her birthday. Happy birthday. I won't be there. That's it.
Very good. Commissioner Mingus.
I have two items, Your Honor.
Yes,
First
sir.
one, just want to congratulate the East Peoria Central Junior High girls cross country team. They placed fourth at state. I guess it would have been a couple weeks ago, but it's been since our previous meeting. I have a daughter that runs on that team, so I'm pretty proud of her, but it also makes you be proud to live in this community and have our community represented by earning a state trophy. Second one is fire department has car seat checks tomorrow. Chief Knapp, at what time?
Let's think about our times again, but yeah, I believe they start at 11 o'clock and go through till,
1 to 4, isn't it?
I'm sorry, It's been a long day.
I think it's 1 to 4.
Sounds great, Mayor. Thank you.
I'm just so used to saying it.
And I knew you were going to say that. I took it from you this time. So from 1 to 4 at Central House.
Very
That's
good.
all I have, Your Honor.
Perfect. Just a few things. This Sunday is the Festival of Lights Queen Pageant. It's the 34th annual, and there are, I believe, 5 participants, and I think Deputy Chief Beck gets the lucky draw to be a judge this year, so I wish him well. Usually there's 11 to 13 ladies, so being a judge isn't so bad because there's 3 that end up in the top 3. Now, when there's only 5, people are going to be glaring at the back of his head, so good luck with that Sunday. But anyway, tickets are still available through tomorrow. It's $12.50 per person. For those that have never gone, it is truly a neat first-class event. A lot of excitement in the room, and it's a neat thing. And I know my wife and my daughter still love to go. I would go, but the little guy opted out this year, so someone's got to stay and watch football with them. So, but anyway, it's a great event. November 16th, 35th Annual Festival of Lights Parade, and it's going to be a big deal. We have the special appearance by the Budweiser Clydesdales, weather permitting, and I know they can't forecast what it's going to do an hour from now, but looking at where it's going to land on the 16th, the forecast for right now anyway, looks pretty good, and I know Rick Swan and Doug were on site today kind of plotting out some additional events that they're going to utilize 1 or 2 of the Clydesdales with. So stay tuned for that. But Festival of Lights Parade, 35th annual, it kicks off sharp at 5:45 p.m., so it's kind of a big deal for our city. The 7th annual Teresa Tracy Trot was held this last Saturday, and we have a lot of staff that are involved in a lot of these nonprofit events that tend to go unnoticed. So I personally want to thank everyone from Public Works to police, fire, Doug, you and your team, and the East Peoria High School always has a group of kids that show up and volunteer, and there are usually about 100 volunteers and 600 participants. So it was a big deal. They had good weather this year, but I want to thank everyone for all their efforts on that. It's always a thing that should be recognized more. And last but not least, we've watched in the last 5 months a number of people stand up at that podium and criticize code enforcement. But there's some stuff, and I'm going to start doing a better job of bringing forward recognition where it's deserved. That's a tough job. And a lot of what they do isn't just going around slapping code violations on people. There's a lot of stuff that goes unnoticed where they work with people that aren't in compliance. And not everybody is just non-compliant because they're anti-government or they don't like, it's my property, it's this. Sometimes people are on hard times. And we had a job up on Pekin Avenue, a house that was non-compliant, this or that. And GIMAX, along with our code enforcement, GIMAX provided free services to go up there with our members of our code enforcement, and they cleaned that property up on October 30th. So we didn't receive an invoice for it. They didn't receive an invoice for it, but it's something that happens probably more frequently than people realize. So when I'm made aware of situations like that, I'm always going to bring it forward because there's always positives that tend to get overlooked by a lot of negatives. So I appreciate GIMAX and our code enforcement personnel for their efforts there. So job well done. And with that, I think we're finished. I would seek a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adjourn until Tuesday evening, November 19th, 2019 at 6 p.m.
May I have a second?
Second.
Very good. Roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
Aye.
Mayor Call?
Aye.
All present voting aye, Your Honor.
Very good. Thank you. Till we meet again.